Hi, I'm Linda Davis, and I want to thank all of you who commented on the first video. I really enjoyed seeing those comments. This is the second video in our Parents Guide 3-part series to help your child get a great music education. In the last video, we went over the 5 elements of music. In this video, I'm going to show you how to sequence those elements so that your child will fully grasp those concepts. If you missed the first video, go back and watch it, as there are numerous demonstrations and activities on how to teach those elements. I also gave a little background on myself, but I want to go ahead and elaborate a little bit more to underscore the importance of starting in the right place and getting the sequencing right. Then we'll deep dive into those sequence strategies. So back in high school when I was a senior, I loved math and I wanted to do computers as a career. And so they had their first student computer there, maybe they had 2, and a teacher asked me if I'd like to learn how to program computers. And at the time I thought, wow, that sounds so cool. So they pulled me out of class and I took this mini course, and you know what? It was kind of lonely. I'm social, and it was kind of boring. And I don't know if the course was set up that well, or I just realized that wasn't my thing. But fortunately, the previous summer, I had started playing the flute. And my mom saw my interest, so she got me a great instructor. And except for the first week, which I got dizzy because I used way too much air, I really got into it. I had taken piano lessons since I was age 5, and I quit for, a few years, but I knew how to read music, so I could focus totally on the instrument. And I just got better and better, and it was crazy. I'd be playing my flute and I'd look up at the clock and go, oh my gosh, I just practiced for 3 hours. I can tell you that never happened with my piano practicing. But, I was kind of a late bloomer, so for high school and auditioning to a music school at University of Washington in Seattle, they didn't take me. But I continued playing. I got a teacher, hopped on the bus every week to go to her house, and kept playing. And then the next fall, I went ahead and applied to the School of Music at University of Idaho, which was a little closer to my home then. And then I was able to get accepted, and I felt right at home. The only problem was that my mother had gotten her master's degree the year before, so all the faculty knew her. So there was this expectation that her daughter would do really well on the theory pretest. But you know what? I never had any ear training or doing solfege with my flute and piano lessons, so I think I bombed the pretest because the look on the professor's face to tell me that I would have to start in freshman theory. He didn't want to tell me that, but you know what? I was fine with it. I wouldn't have wanted to be pushed into the second year. I would have struggled the entire year. Music is one of those subjects that you can't just be thrown into an advanced ear training class or an advanced music writing class and expect to survive. You've got to build on those concepts. Well, I did end up with my bachelor's degree, and it was in music education. So I had 9 weeks of student teaching, which isn't very much. And then we went off to Utah, so my then husband, could go ahead and get his master's degree. So I applied for my first teaching job, and I got it. It was for the county schools, and I don't think they'd either ever had any music program, or it had been a long time, because I was their first music teacher, certified credentialed music teacher, to be teaching. And then they hired a bunch of these other women who did not have degrees. They could play the piano, or they had led music in church, but that's it. So we were all so new. But the district told me, Linda, we can't pay you as a certified teacher, but we can pay you as a top aide at $6 and change an hour. And, I kid you not, we'll pay you an extra hour a day if you train all these other women. So I held monthly staff development training, or at least best I could for these women every month. And then my husband finished his master's degree and we were off to California. As I gained experience through teaching and taking workshops and getting my master's degree, I did get better at sequencing, but not as much as I would have liked to, especially in the upper grades. But when you move around or you're teaching at a K through third grade school, it takes time to get those upper grades where you need them so you can take them on further. Now, older children can learn at a much quicker pace, but you still don't want to skip over things with them. You wouldn't want your child taking a 5th grade math class without learning addition and subtraction, or a creative writing class without knowing how to compose a sentence. Music is the same way, and if you give them a buffet-style experience, all you're doing is just checking off the I expose them to music box. To get all the wonderful benefits of music education like we talked about in the last video, it has to be a complete music curriculum. And here's what you've been waiting for. Let's talk about the sequencing strategy. Here is the long-range plans for Apprentice 1, which is kindergarten. And the legend shows you here that prepare has the pointy fingers moving forward. Present is the check marks, and the practice are the smiley faces. And I'll talk more about that in our next video. So you can see here, I went ahead and put up the regular months for a traditional school year. Of course, that can change, whatever you choose to do. Singing technique may not be necessarily a concept, but I do want to point out how important it is. And we work on that right off the bat, and then we just practice it the rest of the year. Now, under melody, we have the first thing, different voices, and that could also fall under timbre. There's the speaking voice, the singing voice, calling, whispering, thinking, which is inner hearing. And the reason I like to start out right off with this is because when we use those different voices throughout the year, they're already familiar with it, and I don't have to go ahead and teach them right at the moment. We just get that right off the bat. Then we have singing technique, which again is up here as well, like I said, something that's very important. And then melodic contour. That I show through those vocal explorations or melodic contour cards that we have those in our singing toolkit. And then you can use a slinky or a yo-yo to show melodic contour. Vocal exploration is very similar because they're exploring their voices when they're doing the melodic contour. And then we get to size to sound, and that's important because we want children to understand that the larger an instrument is, the lower the sound. The smaller the instrument is, the higher the sound. So I start that, around December. Notice I don't really prepare it because I kind of just present it like, here you go, this is how this works. And then we talk about some of those things later on in the year. High and low, I spend a lot of time preparing by just singing songs before I present, this is a high sound, this is a low sound. And then as the year goes on, then we talk about high-low comparisons, like different songs. It's like, here's the high sound, but this song, this was a higher sound, or this was a lower sound. And then I actually start showing those visuals so they can actually track the high and low sounds at the end of the year. Now, matching pitches, we're going to go ahead and have students listen to me and sing songs and try and match those pitches. Now, I'm not introducing the term, you're matching my pitch. I don't do that, but I'm hoping that a lot of children will start to match my pitch around October. Every child is different. You might have some match immediately, and then some might take until the rest of the year or maybe even the year after that. And then here we have So Me. That's the solfege pitches. And you notice it just says sing. I don't introduce So and Me at all during the kindergarten or Apprentice 1 course. We sing the songs and we do lots of things with them, but we do not present the So and Me to them.
And then So Mi La, that's a 3-note song. So here we have our 2 and 3-note songs. We may do different things with them like beat or rhythm or form. And then the songs are really well learned going into Apprentice 2 or first grade. But we're not introducing So and Me. Other teachers might disagree and want to teach those, and that's fine. That's totally up to the teacher and the child. Well, let's go into rhythm. So steady beat, we start working on that right away, but I don't present beat until we've really done a lot of things with beat. So here I'm presenting it, and of course then we're practicing the rest of the time. And then tracking beat with visuals, I start that as soon as I've gone ahead and defined beat. Then they'll start looking at visuals with those beat marks on it. So you want to have a visual. These are just short little lines, and they just show the beat. The same number of beats in a song is the same number of lines you should have. And then it's really good for the student to go ahead and track those beats with their finger while they're singing the song. Here's an example of a visual that has the beat marks. Bell Horses has 16 beats in it. So I set these short lines in rows of 4. And so as a child sings the song, they point or you point to the beats as you sing them, going left to right and going from top to bottom. And then it's fun to have them count them. After that, we talk about 1 versus 2 sounds per beat. So I use the word sounds, or if they're familiar and you want to use the word syllables, that's fine. And we'll talk about how many word sounds is on this beat, how many word sounds is on this beat, or syllables. And so we'll talk about that because that gets them ready for rhythm. So we want to use rhythm as a way to find it goes with the words. And I mean, that's not the technical word for rhythm, but it's a definition that makes sense to children. And then eventually I'll be presenting rhythm to them. And then we'll practice it for the rest of the year using the term rhythm. We also have strong and weak beats. And I use a song called Bounce High because it has a game with it that we can use a ball, and the ball actually bounces on the strong beat and then bounces up on the weak beat. And then I also have children pat on the strong beat and tap their shoulders on the weak beat. So we have a lot of practice with that before I actually present strong and weak to them. Now, moving on to the next element, harmony, or I also say part work. We talk about beat versus rhythm. Again, I talked about that in the last video, how to show that or how to do that. And we're practicing beat, we're practicing rhythm, but we don't even try and do the two together until we get to here. But notice, I have not presented the word rhythm yet. So if I haven't presented the word rhythm, I'm not going to say beat versus rhythm. I might say, I'll pat the beat and I want you to clap with the words. Or you pat the beat and I'll clap with the words. And then once rhythm is defined, then you can start saying, okay, you clap with a rhythm, I'll pat the beat. An ostinato is a pattern that repeats. So here, before, we might have a lot of patting, we might have a lot of clapping, but an ostinato is a pattern, so I might combine the two, patting and clapping, like this. Pat, clap, and then have them say or sing a song while they're doing that ostinato pattern. I do not use the word ostinato with them, but they are experiencing it. And that's why it says ostinato experience, not, just ostinato, which implies I would define it. And the next one, it says major minor experience relating to feelings. It says coming. That just means in my course, I do play major and minor songs, but I don't have a section where I say, let's talk about, your feelings here. So that's something you could do, obviously, on your own. And a major just means the music is in a mode that sounds happy or lively and just very uplifting. And then the minor music is going to be one that sounds sad or scary. When they hear those different modes, major or minor, then they can talk about, how did that music, make me feel? That's just a great way to show how powerful music can be, because it can make you feel like you want to get up and dance, or it might make you start crying. And then we have barred instruments, the simple bordoon. So a simple bordoon is 2 notes being played at the same time. Now, when you have a scale, 8 notes, then you would be playing the first note of the scale. We call that the tonic. And then let's say you have a C major scale. So you'd have C as the tonic, the number 1 note, and then you go up 5, but you count the first note as 1. So C would be 1, D would be 2, E would be 3, F would be 4, and G would be 5. So you'd want them to play C and G, 1 and 5, at the same time on a barred instrument, and just with a beat. That's all they're doing, is they're playing with a beat. And you notice I like to start my students out really close to the beginning of the year. And you notice something else I start at the beginning of the year is mallet technique, all right? So they need to know how to play the mallets correctly. Pinch, wrap your fingers around loosely, elbows out to the side. So as soon as I get them on a barred instrument, I go ahead and have them learn that mallet technique right away. And we stay on it all year long so we don't get bad habits forming. A barred instrument, probably the less expensive one, is a glockenspiel. They're smaller, they have metal bars. And then as you go up into the xylophones or metallophones, they're bigger, and then, of course, they get more expensive. You can also find digital barred instruments online, and you just won't be able to do the mallet technique, obviously. Okay, let's move up to form. We have musical ideas. All the songs that we're singing are preparing us for musical idea. I'm really going to get into the method of this prepare, present, practice on our next video. I'll show you how that really works. But you can see that we're preparing, and then, I'll present, this is a musical idea using that rainbow arm like I talked about in the last video. And then motive, I go ahead and present it later. Notice they still have a lot of time with using musical idea words. And then finally I present motive. And then expression, like I said before, these can be taught anytime. You'll even see some where I'm not even preparing anything. It's like, here we go. So here's one, movement. This is where I define certain types of movement. Locomotor and non-locomotor movement. So locomotor is where you're moving somewhere, like walking or skipping or marching. And that we do that all through here, but I don't talk about those terms until we get to this point. Now, creative movement, I think you could actually say creative movement anytime. I don't think you really have to prepare unless you want to. But we definitely do creative movement. And then I just might throw out the term, okay, let's do some creative movement today. And of course, we do it all year long. Now, next is timbre. And as I said in the last video, timbre is a unique quality of sound that a certain instrument or voice has. And my courses, I use piano, violin, and flute. And I just introduce that right away so they can understand, what am I listening to? It's great to have pictures. Or if you have a real one, go ahead and bring that out. And then moving on to unpitched percussion families. So there are 4 of these, well, at least I like to have them in 4 groups. And that would be metal, wood, shaker, scraper, and drums. Notice metal and shaker, scraper, like triangle and maracas, I introduce a little bit later when I introduce all the groups at once. But notice the wood family is represented earlier on, and that's because I like to use rhythm sticks a lot. And then look what comes very first, the drums. Because the very first lesson, I like students to play their name on the drum the very first day. So I don't talk about families at that point, but I do tell them it's a drum, and then we practice the rest of the year. Again, you can choose whenever you want to introduce these kind of instruments. You can do it at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, or the end of the year. Next, we have body percussion, the snap, clap, pat, and stamp. And again, I have them do that the very first lesson of the year. And I think children pretty much understand what those terms are, or you might maybe use different terms for those. And then we just do it all through the year. And again, you don't have to start out the beginning of the year. You can start it later. The expression, we have dynamics. In kindergarten or Apprentice 1, we just focus on loud and soft. So we'll sing loud songs or soft songs beforehand before I actually identify that and define that for them. The last one is tempo, the speed of the music. At first, we just focus on fast and slow. And I love to use Ring Around the Rosie. The kids just have so much fun going slow, like through peanut butter, or fast. And then when they fall down, they're just a big giggling heap. And so I'll define that. And then later in the year, then I'll bring up the Italian words allegro or largo. Allegro is fast or lively, and then largo is slow. So I just stick to those two words, and that's all for the first year. All right. I don't go into any more. I just want them to know fast and slow, and then just learn 2 Italian words there. All right. That is it. I'm going to put a link down below to give you access to this Apprentice 1 thing if you'd like to use it. I don't allow editing on this one because it has our logo on there, and I don't want it to get changed and put out on the internet and falsely represent me. But I will provide a blank one so that you can modify it to your schedule and how you want to present things. So hopefully that was helpful to you.
And that is how I sequence the elements of music, and I learned it in my Kodai training. But it taught me an amazing teaching process. In the next video, I will show you what that looks like, and it will help eliminate that buffet-style teaching mode. Your child will be able to get a deep learning of music through this process. I would love it if you would leave a comment below answering one or both of these questions. If you've been teaching music at home, has it been the buffet style or more of a sequence process? Secondly, do you see an element that you present earlier or later than I described? And how's that worked for you? I look forward to reading your comments, and if you know of anyone who could use the information in this video series, please share it with them, and I will see you in the next video.